Hello and welcome to Ford Live, coming to you from the Ford stand of the Frankfurt International Auto Show here in Germany. And today we're going to be talking about sports utility vehicles, otherwise better known as SUVs, and their importance in the market here in Europe, and also their importance to Ford. And helping me do that today, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Jim Farley, who is the President of Ford of Europe, Middle East and Africa, and also by Andrew Ensign, who is the Managing Director of the Benenson Strategy Group. And maybe, Jim, if we could start with you, what are Ford's expectations for growth in the SUV segment in Europe?
Well, we're announcing today that we plan to grow our sales 200%, and this is a really significant development for us. SUVs are the heart and soul of Ford Motor Company, a real competence for us globally. And it's a relatively new trend in Europe. It's taking flight a little differently here in Europe than the rest of the world, but it has the same kind of consumer pull. And there's a couple of key new products that are going to be that's going to help us do that, perform that growth. We have 5 new products that we're announcing over the next 3 years that are going to fuel that growth, and I'm sure we'll go over each of those.
All right, this is important obviously from a product enhancement action in terms of the Ford portfolio in Europe, but how important are SUVs to the actual Ford brand?
Well, aside from the sales and the higher transaction prices that SUVs give you, you have a much more emotional purchase by the customer. I mean, these products are really key to continue to improve our brand health here and move from the rational, more emotional side of our reputation. Sure, Mustang and STs help with the brand, Vignale and Titaniums, but utilities are a whole category of products that can help people look at the Ford brand differently because they're lifestyle choices. When people buy these vehicles, they visualize themselves using them differently than a normal hatchback. And in doing so, when other people see them, it'll help the brand attraction. So this is not only important from a sales and profit standpoint, it's also critical for our growth of the brand.
Right, and Andrew, Jim's obviously talking about increasing Ford sales of SUVs in Europe. Are we actually seeing sort of growth in the market, and what's actually fueling that growth amongst potential customers?
Well, look, we've seen a real transformation in positive perceptions of SUVs across the board and across Europe, but particularly so for millennials, so those are consumers currently aged 17 to 34. Now, that's really important, John, not least because millennials account for 1/4 of Europe's population right now, but of course this is the next generation of new car buyers. And so in terms of the sustainability and growth going forward, 24% of millennials in market, so that's 1 in 4 millennials considering buying a car in the next year, and now considering an SUV.
Right, okay, so what you're also saying is that millennial group is really here to stay. This isn't just a flash in the pan in terms of the market itself.
Well, that's right. I mean, we did a significant piece of research. We spoke to 5,000 adults across Europe, and what came out very strongly was that for millennials, the SUV has the strongest emotional pull. So actually more than any other car type, the SUV is now the car that the millennials want to be seen in. They feel powerful when they're driving it, but also it brings them that kind of sportiness and that fun to drive. So yes, there are some of those rational and emotional factors at play. It is an enabler of a kind of a freedom of lifestyle. So we saw 1 in 2 millennials, actually more than 1 in 2, 52%, saying that more than any other car, the SUV was best at keeping themselves and their family safe. And of course, at this stage of life, that's a young family. And a similar proportion said, you know what, the SUV is the perfect car for an active lifestyle. And slightly more than that, 54% said that the SUV, more than any other type of car, enabled them to go anywhere across the country, across the city. Now, when you look at that combined with the changes of perceptions about how environmentally friendly SUVs are and their fuel efficiency, and 84% have seen a big change there over the last 5 years. It's universal, it's more than 4 in 5. So what's critical for the SUV is when you bring all of that together. So actually 52% that are considering buying an SUV are doing so because they believe that it is the one type of car that brings them all the capability and the functional and the rational benefit combined with that emotional pull. So the long-term trend really is one of convergence. So if you think of this iPhone generation, where they rightly demand the enabling device that does everything all in one place, SUV becomes the long-term natural choice.
Okay, so the market sounds like it's going to be there, Jim. The question is now, how is Ford going to fill that? We've got a number of new products that we're showing on the stand here in Frankfurt. And maybe if we could start with the Ford Edge, because that's going to be our new flagship SUV in Europe. If you could tell us something about that product.
Well, it's a very important choice that Ford is using there, because tradition would say we do a body on frame, pickup truck based, or even a 3-row SUV at the top of our range, but we're not selecting that. Edge is very stylish. It's a 2-row. It's based on CD platform, the same as Mondeo, so it's really fun to drive. We have a great diesel engine lineup, right in left-hand drive for the first time. This is truly the first step in Edge going global. The Edge that's sold in China is different than the Edge we're going to sell here in Europe. And this is really, in a way, our flagship, along with the Vignale Mondeo, of our lineup. And I think the product really speaks for itself. It's also a segment where we can compete with the premium brands. This is a segment where customers kind of separate the value of the badge a little bit, and Ford is very credible, and even the high-end SUV, and the Edge is a very high-end product, but really well executed. It's got incredible technology, the same as Mondeo, all of the same feature content that you would find in an S-Max, and it's got that great driving dynamics you'd expect from a Ford. So I think it's going to be a really attractive brand builder for us.
And in terms of our other SUVs on the stand, we've obviously got an upgraded Ford Kuga,
yes.
But maybe just as significantly, we have a very heavily refreshed Ford EcoSport. Would you like to tell us something about that?
Sure. I mean, first of all, in the Kuga, that's our best-selling SUV crossover. It's very well accepted. In fact, even though we haven't really done anything to the product, the sales are up more than the market this year. So we're just seeing more and more people find that product, and our segment share continues to increase. We put Sync 2 and really revised the whole technology suite inside the vehicle this year, which would be a big upgrade. Going to EcoSport, which is a really key segment. Frankly, from the data that you see on the consumer side, the small SUV segment is really fueling the growth for the industry, and same for us. And EcoSport's a huge opportunity. We're basically, touching every part of the product to make it just right for Europe. The current EcoSport's doing very well, but we're going to update all the dynamics, so bushing, springs, everything, to give it that Ford feel. We're enhancing the whole interior ambiance, much more upscale materials. The whole interior has been, and in fact, we're really upgrading the electronics and the feature set. We have taken the tire off the back. For some customers, that's a big deal. So we've redesigned that feature. I think it's a big change, and that updated EcoSport is just hitting the market today now. We're just starting to wholesale those to dealers.
And Andrew picked up on an important point earlier, which is this whole issue of CO2 and SUVs. I mean, in the past, low CO2 levels in SUVs have not really gone together. But it does seem to be that we've made significant inroads into CO2 output from SUVs now.
What Andrew said is really important, which is that they're heavier vehicles, so the CO2 isn't exactly the same as a Fiesta, but it's really within the realm of acceptability for customers, given all the other things of emotional and functional things that they find interesting. Our best CO2 Fiesta is 95 grams, and we're going to have an EcoSport at 115. So, just 5 years ago, 115 would be best in class for a B-size vehicle. Now we're doing it on our SUVs. Same for Kuga, and even we're going to be below 150 grams for Edge, which is a big deal in Europe. I think we have found that sweet spot now for CO2 performance and fuel efficiency, where people can find the vehicles practical to run, but still give them all the emotion.
Okay. And Jim, you mentioned that Ford will be launching 5 new SUVs and crossovers in Europe over the next 3 years. Can you tell us any more about those future products, or
I wish I could, but No, I think we're being, as specific as we can right now. We don't want to be any more specific than that, but you can really see the commitment we're making with Edge and some of our new launches. You can imagine what's coming over the next couple of years, and as we said, we'll expect the sales to grow, but more exciting for me even is that connection with the customer that Andrew mentioned. To be a relevant brand in Europe, to really compete with the luxury players, this space is really critical for us, and it's critical for our long-term viability as a company for our brand.
Okay, well, Jim and Andrew, thank you very much for your time today. I'm afraid that's all we have time for on this very interesting subject of SUVs. We will be having further Ford Live webcasts throughout the 2 days here at the Frankfurt Auto Show. So please keep tuned in, keep watching us, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.